My name is Claire. My family never needed a cleaner. If you intend to be one of us, my father said, then leave this house. Those words from my father, a man whose approval I so desperately craved, left an indelible mark on me. I so wanted to hear from him just once. I'm proud of you, Claire. Not out of duty, but from genuine respect. However, that moment never came. It happened on the night when my father, Henry, was celebrating his 57th birthday. As always, for such a special occasion, a lavish dinner was prepared, as if it had come straight from a film set. Crystal glasses, expensive wine poured, and the entire family gathered around him. One by one, my brothers shared their successes. My younger brother, Owen, talked about his promotion at a marketing firm, while my older brother, Logan, proudly spoke of a new achievement in the financial sector. My father listened to them with pride, nodding. Well, it's been a magnificent year for all of us. Owen, your successes are no surprise. And Logan, your investment skills are truly outstanding. You both have lived up to my expectations. At that moment, gathering all my courage, I decided to share my plans. As my university graduation approached, I had been considering various career paths, but none of them felt right. Then recently, I had discovered a passion for working in the cleaning industry. I actually have some news about my future, I began quietly. After graduation, I want to work for a cleaning company and, in time, start my own small cleaning service. As soon as I finished, my father slammed his glass on the table, and a heavy silence instantly fell over the room. Cleaning? He said with clear disbelief and disappointment. My daughter wants to be a cleaner? You must be joking. The word cleaner came out of his mouth with a hint of something dirty. Cleaning is important work. It's part of the service industry, I tried to explain. Do you really think your future lies in carrying a mop and cleaning other people's houses? He interrupted loudly. Do you know how much I've invested in your upbringing? How much I've spent on your education? And now you've chosen the path of a cleaner? My mother looked at us anxiously. Henry, maybe you should let her finish, she said. There's no need to hear any more, my father declared, waving his hand dismissively. In our family, we have 2 successful sons and 1 daughter. He paused, as if searching for a word, then added, cleaner. Owen smirked, and Logan gave an uneasy grin in response. I'm not just a cleaner, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I intend to become a business owner. Is that so unusual? Do you think I'm incapable of handling a business? My father responded mockingly, You don't know numbers, you don't have the right connections. You're just a cleaner, and my family doesn't need a cleaner. But Claire, remember this. If you pursue this ridiculous plan, you'll disgrace our family. I won't be telling my friends and colleagues that my daughter earns a living mopping floors. If you really want to be a cleaner, then get out of this house. A complete silence fell over the dining table. My mother stared at my father with wide eyes, while Owen and Logan stopped laughing. I slowly placed my napkin on the table and stood up. Fine, I said in a calm voice. I'll leave and become a cleaner. But one day, you'll regret your decision. Don't amuse me, my father snapped back. You won't last. A month and soon you'll come crawling back on your knees. I couldn't find words to respond. I simply left the dining room, went upstairs, and headed to my room. That evening, I packed my things and said goodbye only to my mother. She handed me a small amount of savings and hugged me with tears in her eyes. You'll succeed, she whispered. Be proud of your work, and one day, your father will understand you. The next morning, I left the house without saying a word to my father or brothers. The only thing I decided then was to achieve such success that they would never again dare to call me just a cleaner. 7 years have passed since then. I built a top-notch cleaning company from scratch. Now, my services are booked by the wealthiest homes and offices across America. Years spent cleaning at night, sacrificing weekends, and constantly battling doubts, all of it led me to who I am today. I dedicated my life to my work, believing that one day my father would be forced to acknowledge my success. In those 7 years, I never returned to my childhood home. I didn't call or write to my father or brothers. Only my mother, Dana, kept in touch with me from time to time. I told her about my successes, shared my achievements. During that time, I met my future husband, Neil, got married, and became a mother. Even while taking on the new role of a mother, I continued to grow my business. Only my mother knew about my new life. She called secretly to hear about how my children were growing and how I was growing myself. "You should tell your father and brothers," she said more than once, but I was resolute. "No, not yet. Not until I'm so successful that they can no longer ignore my existence." And so I returned, not as a cleaner, but as a successful business owner, wife, and mother. I returned to prove my father was wrong, to show that I wasn't just a cleaner, but a person who achieved success beyond his wildest dreams. One day, I received an invitation to my father's 65th birthday. Every year, they sent me an invitation out of politeness, and I never showed up. But this year, I simply replied, "I'll come." The family's reactions in the correspondence ranged from surprised emojis to awkward silence. I could feel their confusion even through the phone screen. The day arrived. I chose an outfit not for approval, but to remind myself of the journey I'd taken. Confidence in every movement, strength hidden behind my gentle smile. When I pulled into the circular driveway, the quiet luxury of my car spoke for itself. "Are you ready?" Neil asked, squeezing my hand. In his calm blue eyes, I noticed a hint of concern. "Mom, Grandpa's house is so huge," shouted 5-year-old Jonas from the back seat. 3-year-old Sonia gleefully agreed, trying to lean out the window. "Kids, behave yourselves," I said, taking a deep breath. "Let's go." When we entered, my brothers were already there. Glasses clinked, conversations flowed, and laughter filled the terrace. My father sat at the head of the table with a glass of whiskey, reveling in his role as the successful patriarch. When his gaze landed on me, a shadow of confusion crossed his face, disrupting his usual smugness, followed by the familiar contemptuous smirk. "Well, look who's back," he said. "The prodigal returns, remembering where her home is." All heads turned toward me. I felt their judgment and curiosity lingering in the air like the scent of expensive perfume. I smiled calmly as I had rehearsed. "Hello, everyone. Long time no see. Happy birthday, Dad." But their faces grew even more stunned. Behind me, Neil appeared, holding Jonas and Sonia by the hands. "This is my husband, Neil, and our children," I said. Jonas and Sonia, "Kids, this is your grandfather and your uncles." "Kids?" my father gasped. My mother, Dana, ran to me with tears in her eyes and hugged her grandchildren so tightly, as if afraid to let them go. "I'm so happy to finally meet you," she whispered, then warmly greeted Neil. She gave me a conspiratorial glance. She had kept my secret. Owen and Logan sat with their mouths agape. "Why didn't we know about this?" Owen demanded. "Because you never asked," I replied calmly. "In all 7 years, none of you ever tried to contact me. Only Mom knew." My father looked at the children, and emotions flickered across his eyes. I could feel the weight of realization dawning on him. He had missed their first steps, first words, birthdays, every important milestone. The dinner continued with awkward politeness. Everything seemed proper, but tension simmered beneath the surface. My mother fluttered around like a nervous butterfly, filling wine glasses, laughing unnaturally, trying to fill the silence. My brothers had already drained half a bottle of expensive wine, and the atmosphere was tinged with familiar notes of rivalry and unspoken reproaches. Our little family sat quietly at the edge of the table. In my purse lay a black envelope, heavy as a loaded weapon. The conversation at the table flowed as if we didn't exist. "So, how's the company doing this quarter, Dad?" Owen asked, raising a crystal glass. My father smiled confidently. "As always, breaking records, but not everyone can handle the pressure of a leadership position. It takes real leadership qualities." He looked at Logan with pride. "Luckily, I have 2 sons who know what true success is." I watched silently. His favoritism didn't even try to hide itself. Then his gaze slid across the table, and I felt the atmosphere shift before he even spoke. "But one still slipped through," he drawled. "The cleaner." He waved dismissively in my direction for everyone to see. "While others build real careers, She's still playing with a mop and bucket. I'm proud of all my children and grandchildren, except the cleaner and her kids. Harsh laughter followed. He nearly spat out his wine, and Logan laughed so loudly he slapped the expensive tablecloth. I remained completely calm, hands folded, face impassive. I didn't react. I just waited. When their laughter died down, I slowly rose from my chair. I moved with the confidence of someone who already knew they'd won. "Actually, I brought you something special for your birthday, Dad," I said, pulling the black envelope from my purse. "A gift you've been waiting for decades." The room fell dead silent. Even the clink of cutlery stopped. I walked around the table and placed the envelope directly in front of him. He froze, bewildered, staring at it. "What's this supposed to be?" "Open it and see," I replied, stepping back and crossing my arms. He theatrically tore open the envelope, as if expecting something trivial. The first thing he pulled out was a photograph, not just of property, but of a dream. "This is coastal property," I said, placing the photo in the center of the table. A modern architectural masterpiece of glass and steel stood boldly against the sparkling blue sea. The 3-story mansion seemed almost part of the ocean, with floor-to-ceiling windows spanning the entire facade, offering a breathtaking view of the Pacific Ocean. "This is Sapphire Point, Malibu, California," I explained. He said, "This is the place I always dreamed of owning." "Are you saying the photograph is the gift?" he asked skeptically. "The house you always dreamed of, yes," I said softly. "The place you talked about while sipping wine, where you planned to retire, remember?" His fingers trembled as he reached for the other papers, and as he read, his expression changed drastically. "What is this? What the hell is this?" he asked, squinting. "I bought it last week," I replied quietly but firmly. He froze, as if someone had pressed pause. "The deed is authentic," I added, glancing at the photo. "But I'm keeping it for myself. As you said, I'm giving you the photograph, a memory of something that will never belong to you." "What the hell is going on here? I think it's time to explain," I said, taking a sip from my glass. The dining room was thick with tension. All eyes were on me. Neil nodded beside me, gently squeezing my hand in support. The kids were playing in the living room with Dana, far from the adult conversation they didn't need to hear. I pulled a business card from my purse and placed it on the table. In gold foil, it read, "Claire's Service." What I built isn't just a cleaning company. It's a premium service empire. We now have contracts with half of the Fortune 500, over 200 employees, and 8-figure annual revenue. My father stared at the card, then looked at me, stunned. "This can't be." "You've heard of it, Dad. You just didn't know it was mine," I said, pulling out another card. This one read, "CES Consulting. In fact, you've been paying me for 3 years." "What?" he gasped in shock. "CES Consulting is your confidential consultant. Your company's executive board makes decisions based on my recommendations. My team knows all the strengths and weaknesses of your business. I'm not just a cleaner, Dad. I'm your industry partner and consultant," I said with pride. Neil added, "I'm an IT security specialist and Claire's business partner. She handles strategy. I handle technical implementation." He looked at me with love and continued, "We designed information systems together. Most of your company's security infrastructure is my work." He leaned forward, paling. "So you're the consultant who proposed the innovative workspace, design and cost reduction strategy?" "Exactly," I nodded. "My team increased your department's efficiency by 30%. We started with commercial cleaning but became experts in organizational efficiency and space optimization. Since we prepare the work environment, we see exactly how to improve it." "Brilliantly said," Neil added, looking at me with pride. "Claire isn't just a business owner, she's a revolutionary. She's transformed the cleaning industry." Logan downed his whiskey in one gulp. "You've got to be kidding. The mysterious consultant Dad always praised was you?" "Absolutely," I replied. "I'm the one your company paid millions to solve problems no one else could. Ironic, isn't it?" I continued. "The daughter you called a failure saved your company's profits." Laughter from the children in the living room served as a bright reminder of how full and happy my life had become. Even in that moment, my father sat in complete silence. Only then did realization dawn on his face. For 7 years, unbeknownst to him, he had admired my talent. Now he faced the truth. The daughter he once shamed was the very business genius he had praised. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked. "Why didn't you figure it out yourself?" I replied. "Why didn't you ever look at my company's name? I never used my last name because I wanted to give you a chance to figure it out, but in 7 years, you never tried." Neil placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "By losing her, Henry, you missed out on a truly exceptional person." A heavy silence fell over the room. The weight of my 7-year absence, my struggles, and my secret success hung over everyone. "But that's not all," I said, pulling out another black envelope. "My work with CES Consulting included a full audit of your company, and I discovered something." The air in the room grew thick. Neil looked into my eyes and nodded slightly. He already knew what was coming. "What are you trying to say?" my father asked nervously. I pulled documents from the envelope. "You've been embezzling company funds, skimming 5% off project budgets, and funneling them through dummy subcontractors to your personal account." Logan gasped. "That's a crime." "Exactly," I said calmly. "My team spent the last 3 years gathering evidence. Transaction logs, bank transfers, fake contracts, everything." He jumped up, raising his voice. "That's a lie. Dad would never do that." Neil intervened gently but firmly. "Unfortunately, the numbers don't lie. I personally tracked every transaction. The evidence is irrefutable." My father's face paled. He gripped his glass tightly. "What are you going to do with this information?" he asked hoarsely. "That depends on you," I replied. The joyful voices of the children and Dana's laughter from the living room sharply contrasted with the heavy silence in the room. Owen placed a hand on my father's shoulder. "Is it true, Dad?" After a long pause, Henry nodded slowly. "It started with small things. The company was in a tough spot," he tried to explain, but his voice trailed off. Logan stood, stunned. "Why did you do it, Dad? You always lectured us about honesty." "I needed the money," Henry said quietly. "For your college, for this house, to maintain our lifestyle." I responded calmly, "That's no excuse. You said my work as a cleaner would disgrace the family, but the real disgrace was you." Henry lowered his head, looking weaker than I'd ever seen him. "I've built strong relationships with every member of your company's executive board. They trust my judgment. I don't have the authority to fire you, but I can advise them about your future." Owen intervened. "That'll ruin him. He'll go bankrupt or to prison." "Possibly," I said coldly. Logan looked too shocked to speak. Owen's face flushed with a mix of anger and shame. Henry was completely broken. "Fine," he finally said. "I'll accept your terms." Logan stared at him in disbelief. "Why, Dad? Why take such a risk?" Henry lifted his face, showing genuine sincerity for the first time in a long time. "Pride," he said. "I wanted everyone to think I was a successful businessman, especially you and my friends. The truth is I've been struggling for years but couldn't admit it." "So that's why you called me a failure?" I said quietly, with understanding. "You were desperately trying to maintain the illusion of success, and my career, chosen with confidence, seemed like a threat to your pride." Henry looked me in the eyes for the first time. "That's right," he admitted. At that moment, Jonas ran into the dining room. "Dad, Mom, Grandma's about to cut the cake." He froze, noticing the serious expressions on our faces. "Is everything okay?" he asked. Neil smiled gently at him. "Everything's fine, Jonas. We're just having an adult conversation. We'll be there soon." Jonas ran back to the living room. For a moment, silence fell. "Do you want to say anything to the kids?" I asked Henry. He shook his head. "They don't need to know. This is my responsibility. I have to fix it." Owen placed a firm hand on his father's shoulder. "We'll help you, Dad. We'll get through this together." Logan nodded. We're family. I looked at them, overwhelmed with mixed emotions. The desire for revenge I'd harbored for so long vanished, replaced by a strange sense of peace. I, the one once called the family's shame, now held the key to its future. I could have destroyed them, but instead I chose to give them a chance to make things right. "Let's go eat cake," I said, standing up. "The kids are waiting." I walked slowly to the living room, my footsteps echoing in the quiet house. What happened that evening left an indelible mark on our family. Not destruction, but perhaps something more significant, something that might lead to healing and understanding over time. The laughter and innocent smiles of my children filled the air like sunlight breaking through a cloudy window, offering me the hope I realized I desperately needed. Hope for a new beginning, for something better than what had been. 6 months have passed since that unforgettable evening. 6 months of reflection, change, and slow but steady transformation. I sat at a cafe table with my mother, Dana. "How is he?" I asked. She sighed deeply. "He's struggling. Since your father left the company, he's truly lost. No severance package. It's like his whole world collapsed," she said. "The company announced it's focusing on young talent, and apparently one consultant advised that his position was no longer needed." Stirring my coffee, I remarked calmly, "He's just reaping what he sowed." "They're forcing him to give up the luxury apartment," she added, "and his golf club membership too. He finally apologized to me for how he treated you." "Too late," I replied. "But at least he seems to have realized something." Dana reached across the table and took my hand. "He respects what you've built. I don't know if that brings you any comfort." I looked out the window. It doesn't. But maybe it's a lesson. No matter who in the family is called a cleaner, you should never underestimate that person. I paused. I don't hate him. I don't need to anymore. I'm just letting him face the consequences of his own decisions. Dana sighed heavily. "He says he doesn't know how he'll make a living now." "I have some advice for him," I said, standing up and paying the bill. "The cleaning industry is always looking for good people. I'd be happy to teach him how to handle a mop and bucket." We both laughed quietly. A laugh tinged with bitterness, but also relief, the relief that came after years of pain. My father finally understood the importance of the role of a cleaner, the very role he once despised. And I showed him just how powerful that role could be. All those years filled with contempt, years when my brothers were praised and I was rejected, considered lesser, insignificant, it was finally over. The circle had closed. Our family story had changed. The balance of power in the family had shifted forever. I was no longer the person who could be ignored, humiliated, or mocked with impunity. I no longer craved their acceptance, and I didn't need their acknowledgement to feel whole. That need had long vanished, replaced by something far more powerful: self-respect. I had built something meaningful, a thriving business, a full and fulfilling life, created entirely without their approval, and more importantly, without their involvement. It was mine alone. I had succeeded. I was self-sufficient. And after all those years of being underestimated, I had finally, quietly, and completely made peace with who I had become.